Violence. Crime. Greed. Evil. These are the things I'm here to fight against. They took everything from me that day. The type of trauma you never forget. The type of trauma I won't forget. The law is inadequate. In order to shame its inadequacy, it is necessary to act outside the law. To pursue natural justice. This is not vengeance. Revenge is not a valid motive. It's an emotional response. No. Not vengeance. Punishment.
Marvel's had a long line of badass video games. Ones like Marvel Ultimate Alliance for that classic couch co-op gameplay with friends, assembling your favorite team of heroes, running into battle. It doesn't get better than that. And of course, nowadays you can't talk about Marvel video games without their most successful titles, Marvel Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man 2. There's also some gems in their lesser-known titles, or they just never quite got the attention they deserved. Games like X-Men Origins Wolverine and Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Unfortunately, for every Hulk Ultimate Destruction, there's Hulk the Pantheon Saga. And every X-Men Origins Wolverine, there's X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Wait, is that you?
Through the good, the bad, and the ugly, we have games that sort of fall under the radar, whether intentional or not. For me, I'd never heard of this game until looking for a Marvel game to review. This is, of course, The Punisher. Releasing with pretty good reviews in 2005 on Xbox, Windows, PlayStation, and mobile wait, mobile phones? Jesus, what, was someone playing this on a Motorola Razr? Nah, honestly, it shouldn't surprise me too much. Some guy on Twitter once got doomed to run on a pregnancy test. What a time to be alive. The Punisher is developed by Volition and published by THQ. Volition being the people who've made some of the best games out there, and some of the worst ones out there. While not sticking too much to every detail from either or, but using things from both pieces of media to make something fun. The game appears to take inspiration from the 2004 movie by having John Saint become Jigsaw, and the 2000 Marvel Knights Punisher comic by professional superhero hater Garth Ennis. You can unlock panels from that comic, plus many others. An example is the quick flashes of other Punisher issues that are shown during certain interrogation scenes. The one obvious thing about this game, the most well-known fact, is its plethora of excess violence and gore. So for those of you who don't know, the violence and gore in this game is amplified through its iconic interrogation and torture minigames. Think of the Batman Arkham Knight Batmobile interrogation times 10. Due to this excessive violence, the Entertainment Software Rating Board, or the ESRB, said that the game had to be rated A. And just in case you don't know, that stands for adults only, meaning you need to be at least 18 or older to purchase the game. So in order to meet the ESRB's mature content rating, its interrogation scenes or its moments of intense violence were switched to black and white. Because, you know, torture's a lot easier to digest if you slap a mono filter on it. However, in places like Germany and the UK, some scenes were removed altogether, or further effects were added to hit the required criteria in order to be released overseas. It was even initially banned in Australia. It's kind of crazy that one game can cause so much controversy just trying to get it on store shelves, right? Oh, could you all excuse me for just 1 second?
I don't know how you watch this stuff. What the fuck? Hey buddy. What's up? You trying something different?
Yeah. I suppose you could say that.
I'm on my way to an audition.
Oh, thank God.
So, what do you think?
Think of what?
The costume. I'm dressed like the Punisher for the audition.
No, you're dressed like the back of a Ford F-150. And, whose car did you crash into our mailbox?
Come on, man, haven't you heard? The Punisher is gonna be back in Daredevil Born Again. So of course your old pal here is gonna throw his own metaphorical hat into the ring.
I don't think so, man.
Yeah, I am.
No, you're not.
Explain.
Jesus! John Berthol's reprising his role for the Punisher. They just finished filming the first season last week. The fuck you mean, nuh-uh?
But I've been studying and practicing all week. The Craigslist ad said I had time.
The fuck you on Craigslist for?
I saw all the movies, I watched all the shows. I even paid the guy $1,500 for the audition fee. Through Apple gift cards, just like he asked.
Oh, buddy. You got scammed.
Dylan. What the fuck are you talking about?
You were scammed! Like a grandma.
No. It can't be.
Fucking psycho.
He took everything from me. My hopes and dreams, and most importantly, my fucking money!
Calm down, man. Look, there's nothing you can do. It's all done and over. You live, you learn, you stop firing guns in the house.
No. I've got one more option. I was saving this for the audition. Something to give me that rugged, brutal edge over the rest.
Do you have a bomb?
When it comes to getting information and righting wrongs through unethical means, everything I need to learn, it's in this game. Don't follow me. This is gonna get messy.
You just fucking stole someone's car again.
The Punisher opens like many other games with an intro cinematic. However, this is the only one to give a nearly lethal dose of testosterone from watching it. Hey, like, I know we just met, but I think I love you. After adding a few new holes to air out some Yakuza, Frank walks out the front of the building, coming face to face with what looks like the entire police force, and is arrested, being taken to Rikers Island. Hey, did you guys hear those fucking... Nope. It's here we're introduced to Detective Soap and Lieutenant Richtofen. While waiting for Frank's lawyer to arrive, the detectives ask Frank to go back 3 weeks and recount to them what happened at the
Fun for the whole family local crack house.
This is how the game's narrative is told to the player. A series of flashback sequences of Frank recounting his past 3 weeks. The player will take control of him as he progresses through each memory recounted as missions, essentially replaying the memories or events leading up to his arrest. Our first portion of the game has...
Get the fuck out of the road, asshole!
It's good to be home. We're thrown right into the game, witnessing the dirty underbelly in New York, as you stop a mugging and watch not one, but 2 nice fellows get thrown out a fucking window. After the Punisher witnesses this, the 2 morons egg him on to try and get them.
Hey, asshole, come get some! Shit, Tom, what if he really does come up here?
So we do exactly that. You make your way through floors of absolutely addicting gameplay, sneaking up on enemies or just rushing them from the front so Frank can do these cool glory kills of stabbing these bozos in the face or just hitting them with his gun. The gunplay feels a lot like many other Volition games. Just aim, shoot, and blow these scumbags away. The Punisher also has a slaughter mode where you can kill people better, faster, cooler. Did I mention there's dismemberment and diving mechanics in this game? God, this game rocks! We reach the roof and we struggle not to raise it and we find the leader? The head honcho? The manager of the crack house. We go full on commando, dangling his ass off the roof and dropping him to the crack. Holy shit! After finishing his first night shift of the game, the Punisher gets a little caught up in New York traffic, almost getting hit by a car, but still able to catch the plates of whoever escaped the crack house. Little Easter egg here, that license plate says ASM 129, which is an Easter egg for the Amazing Spider-Man issue 129, which was the Punisher's first introduction in the Marvel Comics. We fit into a chop shop where Frank has traced the plates of the car to. Crashing through the fucking wall, which is an obvious reference to the Kool-Aid Man, Frank exits the vehicle and starts beating some fucking ass. Interrogating one of the enemies in the room, it's found out that these guys have been overcharging Frank for his oil changes, and a lieutenant of the Nocci crime family, Carlo Duca, is running the chop shop.
Good worker. Kept his nose to the grindstone.
Oh, nothing quite like the cherry on top of a decapitation scene like a little joke. We have fun here. Frank finally confronts Carlo in his office, confused by the Nocci's involvement in something as low as a chop shop. Frank takes Carlo's bullfrog-looking ass outside, demanding to know his relation with the crime family, finding out that he works under Bobby Nocci. Getting everything he needs, he tosses Carlo's big ass over the edge and into a car compactor where he crushes him. To death. Frank now has his eyes set on the Nocci crime family. He first takes out Bobby Nocci, who holds his meetings and runs his businesses out of a place called Lucky's Bar. Frank walks in, and it's last call for these losers as we take out our first member of the family. And after giving Bobby Nocci a respectful death by gunshot in bar, The leader of New York's largest mafia family, Ma Nocci, gets word of her son's death, seeking revenge, and hires a professional asshole bushwhacker to kidnap Frank's neighbor Joan, telling him to get to the Central Zoo or they'll kill her. So Frank heads to the zoo, which is a really funny sentence I never thought I'd say, in search of Bushwhacker. It would also be criminal of me not to state that this section, in my opinion, has the best interrogation kills.
Hey, yeah, Tony, I just gotta run this mulch back to the station and I'll be— Jesus Christ!
We successfully save Joan, but there isn't a bushwhacker of any sorts in sight. He managed to escape the zoo like the animal he is, and Frank promises Joan he won't be alive for long. The detectives continue on interrogating Frank, putting him at the funeral of Bobby Nocci.
But I guess funerals are kind of like parties for you, right, Frank?
You have no idea what funerals are like for me.
Sad? Like everyone else? So Frank infiltrates Bobby's funeral with hopes that he'll be able to whack the leftovers of the Nocci family who've gathered there. Which of course he does because he's Frank Castle. Dumping Bobby in the garbage like the trash he is, Frank puts himself in the casket. And his plan goes off without a hitch as Frank, sitting up from the casket, begins mowing down everybody in the room. You know, imagine how different this could have gone. Like, they're a mob family, so I assume in any other circumstance they'd be armed to the teeth. But what if it went more like... Yeah! You don't have the guts. Frank starts cleaning house and finds Eddie Nocci, the last of Ma's sons, hiding out in the attic above the funeral home where a shootout ensues and... Dude, stop running, asshole! With Bobby weak, Frank grabs him like a battering ram and sends him out the window, impaling him on the fence surrounding the funeral home. Hell yeah. With only Ma left, the next night Frank sneaks into the Nocci estate. He fights his way through what's left of Ma's guards, finding himself inside her library where Bushwhacker's waiting for him. The two fight, and Frank defeats him by tearing off his arm and blasting a hole in him so big that not even Flex Seal could patch it. With the house going up in flames, Frank quickly makes his way into Ma Nocci's panic room. Finally face to face, Frank's ready to finish this. He grabs Ma and throws... Oh shit. Oh shit! You know, going out like this isn't nearly as bad as her comic fate. In the comics, Frank leads her down into where the polar bears are kept in captivity at the Central Zoo. It's here where she's mauled by them and ends up losing both of her arms and legs in the process, and she lives. Until later on when Frank punts her back into her burning estate like a football. With the Nocci crime family gone, Frank traces the family's shipments of drugs to Pier 74. It's here he finds out that the Noccis were in with a Russian mercenary group, aiding them by importing their drugs through the city's docks. So sneaking through the pier, and I use sneaking lightly, Frank runs into Black Widow, who had intentionally gotten herself captured. She informs Frank that a Russian nuke was stolen and is arriving later there that night. Oh, that's so... What? Wait! What the fuck? A nuke? Okay, someone needs to have a talk with shipping and customs, because how are these guys getting nukes shipped to them, but my Amazon Prime order is late even with 2-day shipping? Oh hey, it's a tank. Frank and Black Widow are separated by a blast from a tank while entering a warehouse in search of the nuke. Left with no other option but to fight this tank head on, Frank arms himself with a grenade launcher, that chiseled jawline, and plot armor to rival any anime hero. Or villain now that you mention it. Reunited right after, Widow informs Frank that tomorrow 2 more freighters will be arriving and the nuke will be on one of them. So the following night, Frank boards the Igor Baltivsky, the freighter that's supposedly holding the nuke on board. And his plan? Sink it before it even reaches the harbor. However, this plan gets a little more complicated when he discovers that the nuke isn't even on board. This freighter, however, is shipping persons to the pier with the intentions to be sold in traffic. So first things first, Frank gives these assholes what's coming to them. And thankfully, Frank gets everybody off the boat, safe and sound. But not before giving the detonator to one of the people he saved, giving them the honors of blowing the boat to hell.
Davai.
As Frank returns to his apartment in preparation for his next outing, he hears a knock at the door. And assuming it's Joan with another batch of cookies, he goes over to answer, coming face to face with Kevin Nash! Nah, it's the Russian. An incredibly fun boss fight takes place with Frank jumping onto the giant's back and leading him around the apartment, crashing him into things, taking advantage of the surroundings within his apartment. Eventually, Frank wears him down enough and leads him over to the window, where he grabs him by his belt strap and does what he does to every motherfucker in this game, sending him out the window.
Do svidanya.
Man, Frank really has an affinity for tossing bodies around like last week's trash. Oh, that's right, because they are! Frank figures out that a man named General Krigkov was the one who sent the Russian to his apartment for meddling in his operations. So in order to get even, Frank flies out to Grand Nixon Island where the worst of the Russian gangs have gathered. After landing and throwing all caution to the wind, Frank begins moving in on the island. After taking a few pages out of the Kingpin's book, he runs into Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. fighting the Russians. Noticing that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s lacking in manpower, Frank volunteers to even the odds. So the two team up seeking out General Krigkov. Eventually they find him preparing to ready the nuke that's been unaccounted for since the docks in New York. The two make themselves known, with Fury going after Krigkov and Frank being in charge of finding the nuke. However, Frank has other plans. He's hell-bent on getting even with him before Fury can even reach him. So Frank follows the two of them, followed by Nick Fury getting knocked out by the Russian who was hiding out on the island, leaving it up to Frank to save Fury, stop the Russian, the nuke, and take out General Krigkov. So we reach the missile launch site where Frank and the Russian come face to face once more, both ready to settle the score. Shooting an oil barrel that the Russians raised over his head, Frank helps the Russian and General Krigkov save on funeral costs by giving them both a DIY cremation. And after twice baking these losers in what may be the hardest boss fight in the game, Frank finds out it's too late to stop the launch. So with only moments to spare, Frank grabs Nick Fury, hijacking a plane, and makes it off Grand Nixon Island just before the nuke goes off. No. It's still not over. It only gets deeper. After figuring out the Noccis were smuggling drugs, and they were with the Russians had plans with the nuke, hustling weapons, and selling humans, now Frank unearths information that they all work under one person, that being no one other than Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin. Damn. He's good. So Frank makes his way through Fisk Industries, fighting his way up the tower to confront the big man himself. On the way, he's confronted by Bullseye, and the two have somewhat of a fight. It's mostly just him cartwheeling around and throwing shit at us. But that leads to the upper floors of the tower and inside Kingpin's office, where we defeat Bullseye by, you guessed it, tossing him out the window. I think Frank's just afraid to see his own reflection in the glass. Afraid of what he might see looking back. Afterwards, Frank's ambushed and disarmed by the Kingpin, throwing him into his panic room. A fight doesn't happen though. Kingpin explains to Frank that he's been being manipulated the whole time. Someone's been leaving a paper trail that's pointing all evidence towards the Kingpin in order to weaken his forces in an attempt to take over his territory. This conversation is interrupted by an attack on Fisk Industries by the Yakuza. So the two are left with no other choice but to put any differences aside, and they both fight their way through the attack on the tower, safely escaping. Later on, Frank meets with an informant, and just whoever could he be? Trying to get to the bottom of everything that's going on, the informant confirms what the Kingpin said is true, and the man behind all of this goes by the name Jigsaw, aka John Saint, a prominent factor in Frank's past and is currently a lieutenant for a Yakuza group called the Eternal Sun. With Frank's frequent hits on the Eternal Sun operations, its leader Takagi is losing his rank in the Yakuza, and Jigsaw is taking over, with plans to hit Stark Towers in order to get the Eternal Sun's hands on Stark technology. So Frank takes a tour of Stark Towers, waiting for the eventual raid on the building to happen, and of course, like clockwork, it does. Also, if you listen to the scientists behind the glass here, there's a Half-Life reference with one of them addressing the other as Dr. Freeman and talking about interdimensional portals.
What was that, Dr. Freeman? Maybe the quantum physics group finally opened that extra-dimensional portal. Extra-dimensional aliens! Wonder what they look like!
So we send our main man and #1 Iron Man fan, Spacker Dave, to keep watch on security feeds and keep Frank informed as he starts wiping out the members of the Eternal Sun who are attacking the building. Unfortunately, even with the help of our neighbor and definite future leader of the Avengers, Dave, we aren't able to stop their raid entirely. And by the time Iron Man shows up, the Yakuza were able to escape with some of the blueprints and weapons they'd wanted. So this leaves Frank with one option: make up for that loss by charging their headquarters, guns blazing. And free our boy Spacker Dave, he didn't even do nothing! Upon entering a nightclub that's being used as a front for the Eternal Sun, its disgraced leader Takagi retreats into an elevator that's only usable by a retinal scanner. So Frank borrows a pair of good eyes, opening the elevator, and heads up to Takagi's office. The two finally end up in the same room as each other, and this is a really nice penthouse. Is this IKEA? It's here Frank learns that Jigsaw's played them both like fools. Takagi explains that Jigsaw's plan has been to weaken Kingpin's territories for takeover, and Takagi's been unknowingly granting Jigsaw the power he needs to take over not just Kingpin's territories, but all crime in New York City. So in an attempt to slow him down, Takagi's reported an anonymous tip to the police, having Jigsaw sent to Rikers Island. Asking Frank for one last request, Takagi asked to strike him down with his own ceremonial katana, having rather be taken down by Frank than by one of Jigsaw's lackeys.
Hear me out, Mr. Castle. I have lost. I know this. End my life with my ceremonial katana. It is fitting that you do so.
Frank grants this request as the rest of the Yakuza controlled by Jigsaw charge the room. Taking them out, Frank uses a secret passage within Takagi's office, escaping to the lobby where he's caught by none other than, "Hey, it's you, Detective Soap! You look good, man. You look good."
You look real good.
Frank reminds him to be sent to Rikers as his cuffs are slapped on, and that's when all the events finally catch up to the present. Wrapping up his interrogation, a helicopter flies over the prison, this being none other than the Eternal Son come to break out Jigsaw. This is when Frank's plan comes to motion. He's simply been buying time, waiting for his chance to kill Jigsaw, knowing the Eternal Son would be coming to bust him out. And obviously Detective Soap's been helping him out here and there. So Frank knocks out Lieutenant Richthofen and tells his partner in crime the plan. Kill all the inmates and escape in the confusion.
What about you?
I'm gonna kill all the inmates and escape in the confusion.
Frank assures Detective Soap he's made the right decision and proceeds through Rikers Island, killing inmates, saving guards, and moving up death sentences. Reaching the roof of the prison, Detective Soap is dropped down in front of Frank from above, as it's revealed to be Jigsaw, decked out in all the Stark tech, flying through the air. The showdown between the two commences, having Frank a little more on the defensive this time around, diving out of the way of blasts, ducking behind cover from missiles, and taking out Yakuza members who come to Jigsaw's aid. Eventually, you take out his thrusters, evening the playing field as you go in for the kill. However, right before finishing Jigsaw, you free Detective Soap, and in that split second, Jigsaw reaches for a gun. Frank dives at Jigsaw, followed by a gunshot, leaving you unsure if he's dead or not. For like 5 seconds before kicking Jigsaw out of a plane and onto a police vehicle. Frank flies away in a helicopter, and we cut to Fisk Industries as Bullseye is being wheeled out on a stretcher. The Kingpin expresses his disappointment in his security and vows to take care of the Punisher himself, by any means necessary.
I'm trying to create a virtual reality tool to help people have butt sex with my sister Brittany. Take a look.
Oh, hey, bud. How'd it go?
Well, it went like shit.
Oh.
I did everything I was supposed to. Interrogated some people, tortured a few, and nothing.
Excuse me?
Dylan, how am I supposed to have closure for being wrong when I can't get my sweet bloody revenge on the one who wronged me?
Well, maybe you're not supposed to.
What?
Look, first you probably want to lay low for a while. You're not that hard to find. And I know revenge is a very tempting option. You were wronged. Frank got his revenge, and though it did make him into the man he is today, he still needs to live with that loss. If anything, that revenge on Billy Russo only caused him more trouble because Jigsaw needed to get revenge on Frank. And a lot more people were hurt in the process. You know, psycho-violence. Last of Us 2 shit.
Well, I guess you're right. Thanks, Dill. I'm most definitely being arrested tonight, aren't I?